Hi, and welcome to What is the SEL PQA? My name is Jocelyn Weedo, and I am the Network and Quality Coordinator with Sprockets. It's St. Paul's Out of School Time Network. And that darling picture there is me the summer after second grade. And this was the first summer I spent a week at Day Camp Manitou in their beginner horse program. When my mom registered me, it wasn't because we were looking for an SEL program. I wanted to be around horses. I like the outdoors. But back when I was little, youth programs didn't talk about social emotional learning the way that we do today. And as I prepared for this overview and I reflected on my early days, I realize now how important this program was in my social, emotional, and learning growth. So to kick us off, I wanted to share just a few quick personal examples inspired by this picture. So socially, while the picture is just of me, it doesn't capture the relationships that I developed with other campers and the staff. And we did a lot of name games and icebreakers and had all these new experiences together in that really short week that allowed me to practice kind of those social skills and kind of connecting and meeting people. The other interesting social aspect that I learned about over these years with horses is that working with animal brings a whole other level of interpersonal interaction, respect, boundaries, care, and relationship. So definitely it was an opportunity for me to develop kind of these social skills. And then when I think about the emotional learning that I did during that week, I probably should have been nervous for my safety as I wasn't wearing a helmet. We know that physical safety is really important, and nowadays that would not fly. But I was so excited. This was at a family night, and I was excited for my mom to meet my horse and my counselor. I was kind of nervous because we were going to be showing what we learned, and I really wanted to do well. And it doesn't matter how excited you are to ride a horse. What I know is that during that week, myself and others, suddenly, you might become scared when it's time to do something new and to mount up, or frustrated when the horse isn't doing exactly what you're wanting it to do, or disappointment when it was either too hot to ride, or maybe it was raining, or things didn't go the way we wanted to. So again, opportunities for these great staff to help me through experiencing those different feelings and being able to see and connect with others who are experiencing different feelings during that week as well. And then learning. Um, the one clear moment in this picture for me was working on these early skills that they teach you in horseback riding. I'm adjusting my reins to hold them correctly Western style, or at least how they taught it in that barn. And the trick was to hold it like an ice cream cone with your thumb on top and the reins coming out were like the ice cream. So there's a lot of tips for new learners that the staff provided to kind of help break down what it's supposed to look like, how I would learn those things, reminders as we practiced until it just became something that we knew and how to hold our reins correctly. So there's a very specific skills that we were learning as well. So even if you and your program aren't specifically using an SEL curriculum, the truth is these skills, social, emotional, and learning skills, can and should be embedded in your program context and daily interactions. And this tool can help you and your team for what it can look like in your program, what you're already doing, and what could be incorporated further. So let's move on with the session. Quick overview. Today we're going to provide an overview of the background of the SEL PQA, a broad overview of the 4 domains, and some suggestions on how you can go deeper in your learning as well. So where did the SEL PQA come from? Well, this timeline shows Sprocket's connection with the Weikart Center for Youth Program Quality, though they are the ones who developed the SEL PQA. And the Weikart Center, of course, has a much longer history. So in 2001, they developed the YPQA framework based on the methods that were developed from years of the high scope camp and the Institute for Ideas, Initiative, Diversity, Expectations, Achievement, and Service. And this camp model program was based in Michigan and over the years evolved in different ways, but ultimately received national recognition as an effective and exemplary non-school-based educational program. From that, they developed trainings based on the methods that were effective for their program, and some of that training content we still use today in our network as well. In 2002, the YPQA began a 3-year validation study, and while Sprockets didn't officially launch until 2011, some of our partners were actually part of the work that the University of Minnesota was doing with the Weikart at the end of that study in developing training and assessments process that we use now as we think about our continuous improvement process. Sprocket's partners have really valued a shared language of the YPQA as a way to plan programs based on the best practices outlined in the tool, and then use the tool as an observation and reflection process, as well as aligning the training from our network that connects with the tool as well. So you can see in that green area, there are other variations of the tool. The school age PQA is very similar to the YPQA, but has some tweaks in terms of language, really focusing on younger elementary ages. And St. Paul programs have been a part of piloting other tools, like the Academic Skill Builder that works with programs that maybe are very specific around academics tutoring or homework help. And the Summer Learning Tool, which involved 2 observations, both thinking about the academic components that are really important for summer learning programs, as well as our traditional enrichment out of school time activities. And we were part of the SEL PQA development, and based on the feedback from our city systems, along with other city systems that were using the tool during the pilot, the Weikart Center continued to refine the tool to be useful, honed in on the key SEL skills that could be like measured and seen and outlined in that way. And it's a familiar process that we were already using, which makes it really helpful. So as we get more into it, remember it is just a tool used for planning, reflection, and improvement. The thought and work that went into the tool lets us know that what is in the tool are best practices. And for you, the reality is that depending on what your goals are and the programs that you provide, there may be other best practices you would include as well, and that are not measured by this tool, but that you can measure on your own or think about or have in discussion. And it is a lot, which is why I love that each program can take their pace in terms of building on and building up the components into their program. But if your program is intended to support young people with skills socially, emotionally, and with learning, this tool is for you. So you'll also see that this image breaks down the information around the grades. So the YPQA, we used it for K through 12 with a lot of our programs, but was for grades 4 through 12, where the SEL PQA is designed for all K through 12. There's 4 domains in each of those tools, and so we know that that is familiar. You'll see that. But you'll notice there are some differences. This tool is actually smaller. Where there was 18 scales in the YPQA, there are 10 scales in the SEL PQA. And those familiar with the YPQA know there were 63 items, and we are looking at 41, I believe, in this tool. And so there are some differences in that as well. So this image will be familiar to folks who've seen the YPQA, but if this is all new to you, let me take you through it a little bit. There are those 4 domains: the safe environment, supportive environment, interactive environment, and engaging environment. And then on the left there are the 10 scales that are measured as a part of the SEL PQA, again compared to 18 scales from the YPQA. You'll also notice along the right side it shows how many items. So these are the specific items within each scale that are measured, and how many were created new for the SEL PQA tool, and the percentage that maybe existed previously, either in the YPQA tool or in other tools like that Academic Skill Builder. I will note that some of the ones that were existing before, they've been worded slightly different, or how they're measured is slightly adjusted, and so even when things look familiar, it's really important to read them very close. I just want to point out a few examples. You'll notice that supporting youth interest doesn't contain any new items. The items that are in there will be familiar from the choice scale of the YPQA. And then fostering teamwork contains the items that you would have found in collaboration from the YPQA. They've just been revised a little bit. There's new items. The emotion coaching and cultivating empathy are all new to this tool and really important as we think about how we support young people. And others have a combination of both new scales and previous scales from other tools. If you're familiar with the YPQA, you may notice that things like reflection and belonging are not represented as scales here. However, I will say that much of the purpose of reflection, those amazing open-ended questions that help young people think about what they're doing and how it relates to what they know, they do show up in multiple ways in some of the other items. just instead of seeming like a specific task that happens at the end of session, it really is woven into the way of interacting with young people before activities, during or after learning projects, or whatever activities your young people are doing. So this is a lot all at once. So we're going to break it down now kind of by domain. So the first domain is creating safe spaces. And this kind of description of this domain comes specifically from, and all of the ones I'm going to be sharing today, the SEL PQA reference guide. So hopefully when you take SEL PQA basics, it's a guide that you'll get that really has a lot of information that helps you better understand each of these scales. But ultimately, this is the foundation for effective learning environment. And we're thinking about the psychological safety. So we know that physical safety is important too, and things like first aid kits and fire extinguisher and access to water. And there still is a checklist kind of option of those items that is available, not in this tool, but we know that in the YPQA, those were some of the pieces that were very familiar to us and are important. But this is really thinking about that psychological safety. And so there's 6 items within the creating safe spaces: fostering a positive emotional climate, conveying warmth and respect, providing support for a safe space, demonstrating positive group management styles, demonstrating mutual accountability, and showing active inclusion. So while we often feel as staff we're creating a safe space for young people, these items really help us focus on what staff can be doing intentionally, consistently, and actively from day one and over time to help support safe spaces. There are 3 scales in the supportive environment domain, and we know that this domain is about how staff support young people learning both cognitive and emotional skills. And so again, these are some staff practices that will help young people not only at this level, but also to do some of that deeper learning. Some of the specifics in this domain is about fostering growth mindset. So this scale has items that allow young people to learn to evaluate themselves, self-correct as needed, understand whatever you're learning and whether about yourself or a skill or other content, that it takes time and practice and continued exploration. This also talks about scaffolding learning. So in staff and scaffolding learning, just like those counselors did for me as I was learning horseback riding, it's important they can model skills, break them down, help meet young people where they are at appropriate challenge levels that help them practice and learn new things. And then that emotion coaching. I've heard some youth workers a bit hesitant about this one. There can be a stigma around talking about emotions, that it's too personal, or concern that'll bring up topics that staff don't feel prepared to address. But we know is that we all have and experience a wide range of emotions, even in a given day. Some make us feel good and others don't. And helping young people to build a vocabulary that understands the spectrum of emotions with varying intensities, that they exist, and that this helps create space for young people to be heard and seen, as well as make connections to what brings on different emotions and how to support themselves in times when they're experiencing big emotions. And the great thing about this scale is that it is something we can build into every day in small ways, whether it's specific activities or just in how staff acknowledge when they see a young person experiencing joy or maybe frustration or whatever those feelings are. And so those are the things that you'll find more information about in the supportive environment. So the third domain is interactive environment. So it's about providing an environment where young people and adults work together constructively. So in this domain, there are 3 scales. One of them is cultivating empathy. That's the new one that we haven't seen before. And it's about listening to and understanding other people's perspectives, showing kindness and valuing differences. There's also promoting responsibility and leadership. Having young people have different roles or responsibilities that they can take, mentoring and leadership opportunities, presenting to a group, lots of different kind of aspects that responsibility and leadership can look like. And it's going to look differently for different age groups or different skill levels or different contexts, but that it is built in to the program structure is great. And then fostering teamwork. These are ones that are familiar from other tools. It's about promoting collaboration, thinking about shared goals that young people work on together, and that there is that important time to process together, to really talk about. And this is where one of those, reflection pieces do come in. Like, how do you create a part of a larger discussion on the activities or projects that you're working on? And finally, the engaging environment domain. This domain contains elements that help young people take more initiative in their own learning. So supporting plans and goals, whether it's planning something long-term or just planning on how to divide up the time during that session, being able to kind of make a record of that plan and tracking the progress towards those goals, and being able to problem solve alternatives when things aren't working as anticipated. And that supporting youth interest, this is where a lot of that choice we know is important shows up, and choices and creativity in what young people do is important. And then furthering learning, this is another area that reflection shows up as staff guide youth in discovery, connecting what they're learning to what they already know and what they want to know, and go deeper in their understanding. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's a lot, but it's all important. Thinking about what these things look like for your program is a great reflection activity to take with staff. Which is why this is a continuous program improvement cycle. The tool allows you to take a snapshot of your program, observing either one session or many sessions over time, and then using that data report as a way to reflect with staff. Conversation that helps you make meaning of those scores, what you want to celebrate, what's surprising, what sometimes challenges you to think more deeply about your program, and maybe what you want to prioritize for young people. Ultimately, creating improvement plans or commitments to action. Some might be low-hanging fruit, things that you can do pretty quickly to start incorporating your program, and others may take some more time. It is a continuous process that should be low stakes. It really is meant to be about the conversation and working on improvement, and not specifically about the scores. So using Scores Reporter, you're able to print off reports that either show that one session, or like this is an aggregate of 6 different sessions together. These are what partners use at our M3 huddle, where they make meaning of multiple data sets. And this data is considered quality data. The components or program that happen at the point of service that can be observed. And as you'll see, there's the kind of big overview of the 4 domains, and then it breaks it down into the scales, and then you can go even deeper into the specific items. So use the tool. You can reflect by yourself or with colleagues. Where do you think that you're shining, and what might be some areas to think some more about? Establishing a goal area, you can take a scale or maybe just an item. Plan next steps to add that into your program so that you can strengthen your program. If you have an opportunity, observe a colleague, even if it's just for part of the session, trying to take some notes and noticing what intentionality you see in their program. Or ask someone to observe your program. If you're working on a specific area, ask if they observe that, or better yet, to observe your full program, and use that information at an M3 huddle or for your own reflection. It can be intimidating to invite someone in to observe, but this gives you some great information for you to decide what you want to focus on to grow as a youth worker and to create high quality experiences for your young people. And now you need to decide how you want to go deeper. Check out some other intro videos. We'll continue to add some that are SEL PQA specific on those different scales and items. Attend a PQA Basics. I know in our Sprockets network, we do that each fall, so keep your eye out for that. You can also go to the Weikart Center website, and you can purchase your own online training of that if you want to get a head start at it. That really goes deeper. It's a 6-hour training, and so you really do get to learn a little bit more about those items, as well as how do you do that observation and note taking. And I know you can't see it there, but talk with colleagues, find out what they're doing, whether it's within your program or some of our other network partner programs. How are they using the tool, and what do they focus on, or how do they address some of the components that you'll see in that tool? So that's it. That's the SEL PQA overview. Thanks for your commitment to young people, and we will see you in future Quick Guide videos.